but not a lot more. Men will have depression. They tend to, unfortunately, have a higher rate of successful suicide.
So often, and I'm going to speak to the men for a moment here, people will have been raised in the past to internalize as far as the idea that men don't share their feelings and that sort of thing. Does that sort of psychology play into how depression can affect men?
I think so. When someone feels that a medical illness might indicate that they're weak, and there's a misperception that depression is due to some therapy. It's not. It's a medical illness. So someone might not feel comfortable. They might be afraid that they'll be labeled or discriminated against. They may fear embarrassment.
You know, and when we live in such a small world now, the whole social media thing and all that, postings that people sometimes do can really be hurtful and can really take what is, you know, the proverbial molehill and turn it into a mountain. Things like that can just play into maybe people's inability to maybe seek help for depression.
That's right. Social media can magnify a problem.
So, Doctor, now I understand that there was this survey recently done by Kaiser, and the poll. Do you have any information about this new poll?
Sure. I think the poll was really helpful in showing that most people feel that depression and speaking about depression, it's become easier to speak about over the past decade.
Why do you think that is?
I think there's been a lot of work with destigmatization, education, doing our best to normalize depression as a medical illness. I think that's all helped.
Now, when people are diagnosed with depression, medication, how often does medication play a major role in getting people, on the straight and narrow?
It often can play a significant role. However, many people can benefit from psychotherapy or talk therapy. There are healthy practices that we can engage in, such as exercise, mindfulness, and meditation. Those help, but often enough, a medication is helpful.
It's the voice of Dr. Nolan Thompson. He's the chief of psychiatry at Kaiser Permanente in Reseda. This is tuned in from Mount Wilson FM Broadcasters and Global Jazz Incorporated, and we were talking about depression this morning. Doctor, I think one of the things that also, I need to correct me if I'm wrong on this, might play into the mindset is diet. I think that there have been, if I'm not mistaken, there have been studies that have indicated that, it's the old idea of garbage in, garbage out. Your body will do you or do you not good. How important do you think diet is?
I think diet is very important. We have evidence from a lot of research that's been done that things like diabetes, which can be caused by one's diet, can lead to depression. Sometimes depression can lead to heart disease, and vice versa. So if one has high cholesterol and hardened arteries, it's associated with a higher risk of depression as well. There's also some emerging research that the kind of germs we have in our intestines that help us digest our food may be producing substances that have an antidepressant effect. So, yes. So if we eat foods that are high in those type of bacteria, there's some indications. It's not definitely proven yet, but there's some strong indications, and we're waiting for more evidence to come out.
That's very encouraging, of course, because the idea would be that you could actually, with the right foods, help the problem along as well.
That's right. I think one of the best things to do is to figure out what a healthy diet is and how it matches with your life, and try to follow that.
Doctor, tell us about your background. When did you first start dealing with patients suffering from depression, and your background in psychiatry?
So I was a medical student, and that was my first exposure to working in the mental health field. I worked with people who had depression on inpatient hospitals. One of the most interesting things that I think helped me to choose psychiatry as a career was working actually in the dermatology department. And people who had depression there who, because of the severity, thought that things were happening with their bodies. It was actually a manifestation of depression.
That's interesting. So the folks who may have just thought it was psoriasis, or it was just the tip of the iceberg then.
It was just the tip of the iceberg.
You know, I think the idea is, I've had other physicians on the air before who have talked about the idea about little things can lead to other things and be tip-offs, again, to issues that could be needing confronting. When you first began doing this work, what was the thing that surprised you most about it?
I think the realization that I was saving lives. I came into it thinking I'll help someone's quality of life. I appreciate talking with people and helping them face problems. But when I was on the inpatient service, I saw people who had attempted suicide or who were so depressed that they weren't eating, and there was a risk of them being medically hospitalized because of that. And then seeing that turn around with proper treatment, that really helped me to go into psychiatry as a field.
Did you want to be a doctor when you were a kid?
I did. I actually went to a high school that was a magnet in Houston for health professions.
So you had that calling early on. Did you have the idea that you'd be in this portion of the medical field, or did you have some other grandiose plan when you were a kid?
Yeah, I did not think I would be in the mental health field when I started out. I thought I would be an internist and just work on various parts of other illnesses like diabetes and high blood pressure. One of the real joys of what I do, however, is when I am talking to someone about depression, as you were mentioning, it can have effects in other medical illnesses. Counseling and guiding and encouraging people to get checkups, making sure they're tested for other illnesses that can mimic depression. If someone has a thyroid condition, for example, they can have depression. I've seen people that would come to see me, and I would run a thyroid test and realize that was really the cause of the depression. Get them to a specialist, and that's how they resolve their illness.
That's the voice of Dr. Nolan Thompson. He is the Chief of Psychiatry at Kaiser Permanente in Reseda. This is tuned in from Mount Wilson FM Broadcasters and Global Jazz Incorporated. We're speaking about depression this morning. So, Doctor, I understand there's a campaign that Kaiser has now called Find Your Words. What's Find Your Words all about?
Yes, Find Your Words is a national campaign that is raising awareness about mental health and depression and providing education. It's a website, kp.org, that people can go to. There are also digital spots on the internet that can alert people that this website exists. On the website, there's some cool spots with people such as Stephen Curry helping to promote the idea of mental wellness. There are also resources for people who may be suffering with depression on how to find your words to speak up and reach out for help from a friend, from a trusted family member. As well, if you notice that someone has depression, they can get helpful tips on how to open that conversation with someone that they see may be suffering.
Opening the door to the conversation is so important, and doing shows like this, I always say that this program is here to serve the community, and it's here to shine a light on things that need a little bit more recognition, things that people maybe don't know about or maybe just are not sure about. Depression as a whole is something that people might think that they have their handle on about what depression is, but it can be a very complex concept, can't it?
Definitely, it can have chemical components, as I was mentioning a moment ago. It can have different manifestations. So one person may show irritability, tiredness, and oversleeping, and someone else might be anxious and restless and not sleeping.
Now, doctor, there are folks who, of course, think, I don't need a doctor. I don't need any help. I can do this myself. And maybe they can, maybe they can't. But for the folks who are untreated and have untreated clinical depression, there can be some severe consequences, can't there?
There definitely can be severe consequences. Most severe of which are suicide attempts and successfully completed suicides. Lose a great number of people every year to suicide. Over the past decade or so, we've seen an increase in suicides of about 24–25%.
There was a campaign that was done a while back trying to make sure that the public is educated as to U.S. veterans, that people would serve, either in the wars or in various functions of the military. And the suicide rate amongst veterans has been extremely high, I think, in comparison maybe to the general population. Have you dealt with directly veterans that you've been able to help?
I have dealt with some veterans. Most veterans get care at the VA hospitals, but there is a relationship to the trauma that a veteran experiences with PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder. People will have depression rather than PTSD, and both of those conditions raise the risk of suicide or suicide attempts.
So, doctor, what can we all do to overcome the stigma associated with depression and other mental health disorders?
I think the biggest thing we can do is to educate ourselves about it, and that's why the Find Your Words campaign is out there. Knowing about it and being aware that you're concerned about someone who just doesn't seem to be themselves anymore. Will help to open the conversation, will help to get more people to reach out for help, more people to get the help.
Now, the idea is Find Your Words is, of course, so important to make sure that people are comfortable enough to speak up on their own behalf. Some people just are not comfortable enough to speak on their own behalf and have to have someone speak on their behalf. Is it troublesome, or is it beneficial to have someone advocate on the patient's behalf?
I think advocacy is very helpful. If you have reached out to someone and listened and been supportive of them, some people will go with them perhaps to medical appointment. It could be a primary doctor. Some people go straight to a therapist or a psychiatrist. You can advocate for someone by going to the website and looking at it with them.
Having someone stand there by their side can really be helpful. There's no doubt about that. And people who are comfortable enough to do it on their own, that's, of course, wonderful as well. But it all comes back to taking that first step toward getting some help. That's the important part, and getting that message out that it's okay to ask for help. You're right, there are so many